Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to this webinar. I'm going to be talking about creating a validating environment and how you can do that, hopefully, in places where you work. I'm going to tell a couple of stories about examples of where I've seen a validating environment. And I would like you to please listen and pick out the characteristics that you notice and write them in the chat. Okay? So I was walking in a nursing home. I'm sorry, some people don't like that word nursing home. Please substitute whatever word feels most appropriate for you, whether it's facility. Some people hate facility. Other people like care communities. Please choose what fits you the best. At any rate, I'm walking through this hallway and I see a carer walking with a bunch of stuff in her arms, going to do something. And she sees an old woman sort of humming to herself, sitting in a chair in the hallway. And the caregiver observes this, goes over to her, sits down next to her, she's on the floor, and begins to sing the song. And they sing the song through. The woman, the carer, says, I'll see you later, stands up and continues on her way. And I found that a validating moment. Another example. There was a woman sitting in the dining area, and she was very withdrawn, and her face was very sad. And a carer was passing by, perhaps going off to do something else, but he looked and he stopped and centered, observed, and then he matched her and went up to her, and they talked quietly for a few moments, and then he carried on with the rest of his day. Another example of a validating environment. A woman who has fallen at home and she's broken her hip, possibly. She's brought into the emergency room where the intake nurse recognizes the woman as having some form of dementia, calls upstairs to the volunteers, because there are these volunteers who are trained in validation, and the volunteer comes down, meets the old woman, and is able to validate her through X-ray, doctor's visit, all the way into the OR. A disoriented man is living at home, and he has caregivers around him 24/7 because he needs that care. He has piano lessons once a week, painting lessons because he's a former painter. And when he doesn't go to art class, they set up his easel and paints for him at home a couple times a week. He was a filmmaker, and so they show him not his famous films, but famous films that he loved and were his favorites. And those were his evening entertainment. Also, his favorite songs were played, not all day long, but at key moments throughout the day. That's a validating environment. I love this one. There was an old woman living in a senior care facility, and she would get up in the mornings, she'd put on her coat, she'd put on her hat, she went out the front door where there was a bus stop. This was in a small village in Austria. And she would wait for the bus, and the bus driver would stop, and he would let her into the bus saying, "Good morning, Mrs." whatever her name was. And she would ride on the bus in the front seat on the right, and they would take the whole route, and she would come back to the nursing home. The bus driver said to her, "This is your stop, ma'am." And she would get off and come back to where she lived. I found that to be a validating environment. Oh, this was in a German facility. Most of the people who lived in that region had worked at the same factory. So the head of this facility went to that factory, got old equipment and parts, and created a workspace with all of these familiar old wheels and cogs and tools for these workers who had spent their whole life working at this factory. That's a validating environment. So what do you guys pull out of those stories? Sits down next to her, sings the song, matched her. Songs played at key moments, matching. Do you have any others? The characteristics? Meet their needs, eye level with the person, awesome. Going to where the person is, awesome. Meeting people where they're caring, understanding, honoring their past. Thank you very much. That's an important one. Let me share with you the things that popped out for me. And Megan, if you could pull up PowerPoint 2, please. People are observing. They're paying attention as they're going on with their daily activities. They're looking at the people who they work with, the residents, if it's a long-term care building, or even in the home situation. You have to look what's going on with the other person. The second important point, next slide, please. Residents or older adults in general are given the freedom to express their feelings and needs. If they're sad, they're sad. If they're angry, they're angry. There's an acceptance of emotion and an acceptance that older adults really have the same basic human needs as we do. Next slide, please. Carers know the resident. They know their history. They know about as much as they can know, because sometimes you don't get a lot of information. But the more you know about an older adult, the easier it is to step into their world. The easier it is for you to, even if the person isn't verbal, to have a sense of what could be underneath their behavior. History is really important. And the next, interactions on demand. And what I mean by that is you don't have to have a validation session. You don't have to make it a timed event. It can happen throughout a day, throughout a week, depending on the needs of the other person. So if you see somebody looking sad, you can go up to them and say, "Gosh, you're looking so sad. What's going on?" And take that, maybe 2 minutes. It never takes that long if you can get into the emotion and find empathy quickly. So those are the characteristics that jump out at me. And we can get rid of the PowerPoint now. Thanks. There are a number of important validation principles that get integrated when an entire facility or institution is working with validation. What they've done is they've integrated these principles into everybody, from the receptionist at the front to the head chef to the head of the technical department and the cleaning personnel, and everybody. Everybody's walking around with the same basic attitude. And that comes from these principles. So the first one is a belief that every human being is unique and worthwhile, even if they're very, very disoriented. There's honor given to every individual. When you pay attention, when you give honor to an older adult, you're curious. You want to know more about their history and to find out what is important to that individual. And you can pass that information on by documenting it so that there's continuity of care. Another validation principle: disoriented older adults should be accepted as they are, and we do not try to change them. It's important to recognize that when people get very old, their brains shrink, their senses in some ways deteriorate. The disorientation can be a natural process of aging. It's not going to get better, and we need to accept that. We can't push reality orientation because it's like hitting your head on a wall. It's not going to help. It comes out of our need to hold on to reality or to have that person get better, but they can't. We should never lie. We should never pretend. We should never divert. We take the people seriously where they are at that moment. Disoriented older adults express basic human needs and feelings, just like us. They want recognition. They want to feel useful. They want to express emotion and to be heard. And that goes even for anger and sadness and pain. We all experience those emotions, and older adults have the right to express those feelings as well. If everybody within an organization lives really with those principles integrated, I think you will have a validating environment. So how do you do that? Well, especially during this COVID time, there's often a lot of stress and a lot of things to think about. And every person needs to find a way to center themselves. And by centering, I mean getting quiet and putting aside your thoughts and feelings for a few moments. This technique is useful for yourself, for self-care, but it's also really important to do before you engage with an older adult. So I'm going to lead a little centering exercise, one of my favorite ones, and that is, okay, great. We're going to breathe, we're going to relax, we're going to clear our thoughts and feelings. I'm going to do it with a sound. So think of a sound, a piece of music or a humming or whatever. You're not going to do it. It's going to be in your head. If you want, close your eyes. Make sure your feet are on the ground, that your legs aren't crossed. And feel your sit bones, because I'm going to assume that you're sitting in a chair. Breathe in through the nose and exhale through your mouth. And inhale and exhale. And allow that sound that gives you a feeling of peace to play inside your head. Maybe it's very soft in the beginning. That's okay. As you inhale, you can feel the song vibrate through your body. The sound is not just between your ears, it's in your brain, it's in your spine. You can feel the rhythm of it, the harmonies. Maybe it's a little louder now. Let the sound carry all the way to your toes. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come on back. Okay. You could take the slide away now. Thank you. I hope everybody is back and that perhaps for some of you that was a very useful exercise, and perhaps it didn't vibrate to your way of relaxing. Everybody needs to find their way. We have on our website, and Megan's going to put it in the chat right now, we've got a whole series of exercises on how to center using auditory, visual, and kinesthetic clues. So please take a look at those. If this exercise didn't work for you, please take a look at the other ones and practice it every day. Share it with the people you work with, because everybody needs centering at some point in their day. Sometimes many times in a day, if it's that kind of a day. At any rate, that is certainly the first step, that everybody knows how to clear quickly so you can have those moments on demand. The second thing that we talked about 3 steps, that's the first step. The second step is presenting these principles to everyone in the place where you work, and make sure that everybody understands how important they are, and slowly integrate those principles into your daily activities, no matter what they are, whether it's people who clean in the facility, or whether it's the guy who changes the light bulb, or whether it's the cook in the kitchen. Doesn't matter. These principles really are for everybody. And the third step is, and if you're a manager or an administrator, please find ways of integrating these principles from your mission statement all the way down in meetings, in intramural meetings, between individuals, between different parts of the organization. It has to get integrated from bottom to top and top to bottom. And when you can do that, then you've created a validating environment. We have some links for you for where you can get more information, particularly for people who work in a company and you think it would be interesting. We've got a whole bunch of things that are simple and easy ways of learning validation and integrating these principles. The YouTube videos are free for everybody. We have, of course, books and videos. And one way of inspiring a lot of people is to look at a Naomi File workshop. And we have a 3-part documentary of Naomi File's workshop that you can buy or rent streaming. That works well as continuing education. And we have a beginning validation tutorial, which is totally online, which gets everybody sort of to the same place in terms of knowing about validation, knowing the principles, and at least understanding some of the techniques. We have a family caregiver course. If any of you are family caregivers and either caring for your relative at home or going to visit and spending a lot of time with them in a facility, this course is specially geared to your needs. I thank you all for your attention, and I hope to see you next month at the next webinar. Goodbye, everyone.